are talking very closely, saying, well,
live streaming is on.
No, live streaming is on. There's those who are talking about how exactly do you attribute once revenue is coming in. So they get at the fact that it's permissionless, and we can come up and do the work, and we can come up and coordinate the work and sell the work. Absolutely fine. In fact, they're very excited about that. But the one thing is like, well, how do you agree who gets what? They were thinking in old term styles of contracts and prearranged percentages and so on.
Okay. So what do you tell them when they ask that question?
I was trying to talk to them about the kind of, well, two things. The first one is when you put up a piece of work, your contribution is agreed, and that is noted forever. Someone wants to use that work, then there's an attribution which is generated after the fact. I think this is the thing that I'm getting wrong. Well, I'm not explaining well, in that we don't know, but there is, to start with, one completely wrong attribution algorithm, but we're expecting, because it's open source, not only can you run it to make sure that you get attributed what was agreed, but also that attribution algorithm gets honed, and suddenly, hopefully we have 1,000 that you can choose from. I also mentioned that the buyer can choose which attribution algorithm to go through, and in that, you just sent me a link. It just disappeared. I'll open that for later use.
You'll see it in the chat. I've opened a document called ambient attribution FAQs. Can you say the question again?
Yeah. So they very quickly cottoned on to the idea that actually my ideas could make money, as opposed to my need can be met. Forward apps, they were like brilliant, absolutely fine. But then they cottoned on as when I was talking about, well, every contribution, even these conversations, although the conversation wasn't recorded, even these conversations are a contribution.
Yeah. So then the first thing is you're like, well, if it's not recorded anywhere, the attribution is going to be zero. So how about?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And it's like, well, okay, so say if I do contribute, say I've got a company and I've got some demand for an app, and you're saying you're going to come in and give some consultancy for zero upfront cost, but that contribution is recorded against you. Our contribution of staff to be part of that is also recorded. That's all great. That's a real cost to us. How do we make a judgment call about whether the cost is good enough for that? So say put in three man days, that's got a cost, whatever, I call it 1,500 quid. How do we know we're going to get 1,500 quid or more back?
For solving the problem.
For solving the problem, yeah. So it wasn't the fact that, remember, they were quite happy if they had a problem and all they wanted it is solved, and that was it. It's like, that's a no-brainer. But the conversation quickly went on saying, well, you're saying that this can be reused and deduped and potentially earn quite a lot. So if that's the case, how do I know that I shouldn't put 12 guys on it, or one guy on it, or 2 hours? Or
I'm struggling to hear a clean question here. Can you help me write a clean question in the document?
Yes, I'm going to the document. No. Please. So 4 wraps of problems. Everyone's happy with that. How do I, as a business owner, decide on the ROI that you are saying can only be calculated after revenue comes in from an attribution algo that I don't know in advance. That's the question.
How do I, as a business owner, decide on the return on investment that you are saying can only be calculated after revenue comes in from an attribution algo that I don't know in advance? What does it mean to say what is decide on ROI?
It's a yes/no decision. I mean, do we bother with this?
So
now the important thing is,
so are they saying that they know how much it's going to cost them ahead of time?
yeah, and they were just talking in man days. It's like,
so they know how much it's going to cost them, but they're saying that if they factor in the future attribution they may receive for the work they do on this particular packet, how could they know if they shouldn't put in more time against it?
Yes. Yeah. What? And the case was, how do I know I put, my one junior guy in or my 12 most senior guys in to this piece in writing the request and writing the idea and making sure the idea is well formed and passing QA, saying that's going to take time, that's going to give us a cost. Now, possibly we would do that anyway, but we would be looking for the software developer actually to bear that cost as pre-sales. Now you're saying we're having to do that without pre-sales.
Right.
Willing to do that.
I think the simple answer is, like, if it's not worth enough to you to even define your problem, then probably it's not worth enough to anyone. So don't bother.
There's a couple of interesting areas we went down to, and the first one I'm typing into this document. The size of the requests. So we started off thinking about a software development project costing $500,000. Right. It's like, well, for $500,000, we could just get a software development company to come in and pre-sales doing this, and we could put a couple guys on, and it would be down to them to then deliver against that contract that was against the result of the workshop. I say instead of that, what you're saying is the cost is largely going to be on their side. So that pre-sales cost moves from the software developer to them. I saying that would be okay.
How does it move? How would the pre-sales effort have taken place without costing the requesting company any internal resource time?
It would cost them a bit, but they were keen to go a couple of steps up. They were very keen on the idea that their ideas would generate revenue and could be used, across the other side of the world.
Right, and the question is that if that's the case, then should we refine these ideas, and where do we draw the line as to having overcapitalized on an idea? So really the question is, how do we value an idea when we don't know the algorithm in advance?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so the algorithm, there'll be a version. So you're going to know that ahead of time, and you're going to be able to plug in some values to it and get some kind of a crude forecast.
Yeah. But they were asking, and we've been quite vague on this one. You post up an idea. Do you lock that idea to an algo an attribution algo. And they're saying, well, yeah, okay, but you're saying that this can.
I think the design of this is going to be that you can lock it to any, call it a license that you like. The fairest one to lock it to is going to be latest. Allowing it to upgrade over time, right? Like we're not telling you that you have to select any algorithm. We're making the proposition that as we develop this algorithm to be fairer and more granular, we're going to release multiple versions of it. If you peg your idea to latest algo, you have the best chance of it having the fairest attribution at any given moment. And the theory of the whole venture is that the fairest attribution algorithm grows ideas the fastest and returns the most value for them. That's basically the unknown or the guess. That's the theory, right? You don't have to have any attribution algorithm at all. You can carry on the way you're going with like a mixture of hand spun deals, contracts, and shafting. You can pick a specific version of the attribution algorithm. You can fork it and modify your own, or you can just peg the latest. It's kind of the point is that there isn't one algorithm. The point of our venture is that we will continue to strive to grow a better and better version based on the feedback from everyone around the world. And the gamble you're taking is that the fairest possible algorithm has the best ROI.
Yes, and I gave that, but I think a very reasonable one is how do I go to my CFO and say, I want to spend 10 grand to do this. When I'm saying the
like if you can't, you can look at an idea and you can assign an estimated value to yourself. You can go and do some research in the market that assigns some estimated value to some other contacts that you have. And then you can do some extrapolations on that. If your CFO wants to buy into what you're projecting, that's what the value is, and that's what the ROI is. You also need to factor in a whole bunch of risk. And whatever else you want to put in there. I mean, we need to make some tools that can rapidly make forecasts of the value of a packet. And something basically like when we go to do our listing, we're going to need an automated tool that gives a fairly close approximation of EBITDA or whatever other method people want to use for these packets. We can do a very simple version that can be quite reliable by saying, well, here's these buyers that have said verbally that they're going to buy this thing if it's done and they'll pay X. So that's some data. Then we've got some people who have actually escrowed funds against it, which is another grade, a higher grade of data. And then there's the theory that we have on what the composition of the marketplace is that allows us to extrapolate the facts we have over scale. So,
yes, yeah. And it's, I mean, these questions were, remember that they were comparing it to traditional and to doing it through Dreamcatcher. And it was that was a done deal. It was like forward apps.
Okay, so I think the question you were asking can be simplified down to how is the value of a packet known in advance, or better yet,
or projected, not even known, projected.
What is the projected value?
Yeah,
of a packet?
and it can be. They were very happy with it being an algo, saying if we were to, or just typed it in, if we were to put in $1 or $1 billion, we know that the algo is going to give us an answer, so that is absolutely fine.
Right. Okay. Well, do you agree with me that this is the question? What is the projected value of a packet before it is delivered?
I would add in order decision be made as to relative.
Yeah, but what's the point of adding that though? Like,
okay, I'm gonna take it out. Yeah.
Well,
but yes, essentially,
what is adding that extra purpose give us? Like this question is a general question that could be asked for many reasons, one of which is, how do I decide how much to pour into it as a business owner? Another reason to ask this exact same question would be, how much should I fund it as an external funder?
Yes, that's the main point. So they were quite happy that you can't tell revenue. There's a great point made saying on Dust and on requests, you say you guys are essentially gathering what Google does on searches, except you're doing it for business ideas. And it's like, yes. So if you think about it, a request is the same as a Google search. It's a request for something. It's shown demand for, in the case of Google, an answer or a link. In the case of us, it's shown a demand for something to be built.
Okay.
So that went down very well. It's like, well, that's fantastic. But again, if this is so fantastic, what I'd want to do is like put half my company against it and just start building, building out requests of everything we could get. But how do I know that's a good idea?
Well, I mean, a great question is, you mean you don't have that stuff documented already?
Yeah.
So this is at the very least, this is a surface to put all your problems on, so that at least someone knows about them.
Yeah.
If you haven't done that already, probably want to start. I mean, so
it was very interesting on that one. It was very quickly got past. This is obviously superior to the status quo. That was not even questioned. They immediately went, how do I, as a business owner, maximize my wealth by using Dreamcatcher? Because this sounds like
okay. And again, that question can be reduced to, what is the projected value of a packet before it is delivered? Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
So this whole discussion that you and I are having now can boil down to answering, what is the projected value of a packet before it is delivered?
Yes.
Does it matter how you decide who gets how much, or is that all encapsulated in the first question?
It's encapsulated in the first question, because they don't really care who gets what. They only care about what they individually get.
So this is still, the second part that I've highlighted is still a valid part of the question that you're asking, but if it's split into these two parts, that's okay?
Yes, it is okay, because it's a progression.
Right.
So
okay, because you got first of all, you got the complete value of the packet before it's delivered. People are asking, how do I work that out? And then second of all, of its total value, this is a nice way of saying, how do I know what I get?
Yeah, they don't care. They won't give a shit.
They really don't care about everyone else. They'd prefer that they got all of it, as would every other so-called rational actor.
Or if they got a fraction of a percent, if it still makes sense, if projected value is a fraction of a percent of the packet.
Yeah.
And
okay.
that is
All
going
right.
to be
So
more.
can I then delete all this other text because these are our two questions to answer? Yeah.
These are just, it's just scratch. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So these two questions are orthogonal. We agree?
Yes.
Okay. I would say that there are 3 tiers of data in decreasing quality.
Mm-hmm.
1,
Okay, so what's value to you? Yes, absolutely. You want to say, do I spin off an entire new company that all just goes around making requests? Or if it's this good, and they do I go to funders, and when I go to funders, they're going to say, well, what's your projections?
right. So this question should never come up if we've done our job right, because the projection should be bundled with the interface by which you enter your requests and ideas in the first place.
Yes, it should. But
right.
I think we're suffering from not having. Yeah, sorry.
Suffering from not having the dream catcher. Yeah, it's been
no, it wasn't about not having an example attribution algo that makes sense to these guys. These guys
I think that is only a problem for this question. How do you decide who gets how much? It is not a problem for what is the projected value of a packet before it is delivered.
Yeah, well, close enough. Yes, I'm not going to argue that point. Yes, close enough. I think these are tiered. If you answer by answering the first question, naturally you're going to have to answer the second question.
No, these questions are separated in a way that means that there is none of each answer contained within each one.
Okay. Okay, let me rethink this then. Maybe we spoke. So the what's projected value of the packet?
Who gets what? If you modified this first question and said, what is the projected value of a packet to me before it is delivered, then you would have included question 2 in question 1.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I agree.
But in this way, how you split the packet internally is independent of what the packet is worth externally.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I mean, this it's a reasonable question to ask. This is just like business case, isn't it?
But it's because it's kind of like, how are you doing it now? Is sort of the like, what's so different? I think it's taking these 3 tiers. So what I imagine we have in a dashboard is we have a projected value for it. We let you say you're putting in an idea. You're like, what request does it fulfill? You create those links. From there, we can say that, these requests are required by X number of Ford apps, and they've been put in the App Store valued at X. And we can apply a multiplier to it based on market research that says there are Y number of companies that are similar to the X companies that requested it. And so a projection based on that is a graph over time as the penetration rate increases and the market fit improves as well, because that's a factor in the long-term packet value. So basically, we're not going to just present people with a number, we're going to show them a graph over time. What we will also show is packets that get made will have that data, like what happened, how did we get here, and how are these projections working. And then if you want to go into that workbench and poke at it more, you can twiddle with our assumptions, you can twiddle with the source of the market data, you can cancel out some sources of data, you can ignore this, you can add this, you can multiply, whatever.
Yeah. Yes. And
most importantly, I think you should be able to, in a very methodical way, put some extra money into getting some additional high quality data to give you a more realistic projection. So, how much is the packet worth? Well, how much do you want to pay to know that? Because it takes some effort to give you different degrees of certainty and confidence in that answer.
Yes.
Just like it would with any endeavor whatsoever. It's just that what we can tell you is that if you do it internally and you do not packetize it and you do not make it fair to contributors to get a fair attribution for it, your resource pool will be less than global. If it's less than global, your chance of success is less than maximum. And if your chance of success is less than maximum, your market penetration is going to be less than maximum. Like whatever the value is, we can tell you that our method is better than whatever your alternate is. We don't need to know the absolute value of either of those. We can just look at pool sizes that occur from comparing our method to your method. And so I think we can actually make a pitch retort that talks about basically what's the value of it, who knows. But I tell you what, who knows the value of your existing efforts before they're done too. And we can make some assumptions about leveraging what we know for sure about pool sizes and human behavior from fair reward. So if your current method has a very small pool size and the rewards are very unjust or unfair, then the quality of the work will be low, the price will be high, and the global value will be low because it's closed and not many people are aware of it. Not many people want to use it. They can't modify it. Someone greedy is sitting there trying to clip the ticket all the time. So we can actually, to further this workbench that we're talking about, we can actually let you select different modes of attribution algorithm. Like, hey, I would like the 1604 algorithm, please. And then it's like, pick your cap table. How much is yours and how much goes to the devs? Okay, here's some stats on how that works. Then, like, you can actually show that, first of all, you can add numbers with your data sets, like the Ford App Store giving you some concrete data, but you can also know some comparisons that are relative to methodologies approach to solve a particular problem. And you can say things like, well, rate, how hard is this packet? How big is this packet? All those things change.
Yeah. Granularity was a big question.
Right.
I spelled that wrong. But sorry, go on. Finish your thought.
No, that's basically it. So every packet we would make a request for a standard projections workbench. Projections is a major part of our thrust in the next coming year, because when we list, we want to be able to turn up with a bag of packets and have the projections not manually done by us, but dynamically calculated on the fly for every packet. And then investors can dig into the data sources, add their own. We can pay for increasingly accurate data sources. We can show the projection over time, and we can show the historical graph as well of how things have been doing so far. And we can actually defend our valuation when we list, which is something that very few fucking companies can do. Now, some wise old men once told me that when they went in to do deals for listing a mine, like a gold mine, not to mention any specific gold mines around the world in the north of Canada, but point is that they knew how much that mine was worth to the dollar, because they knew how much they'd done all their pilot holes. They knew the estimates of the grade of gold. They knew the cost of extraction. They knew the price of gold. They knew the rate of extraction and the expected price of gold over time. And they knew it over the next 20 years. And so when they're listing, they're like, how much is it worth? And they're like, X million because this. Yeah. Now you can argue here or there with that valuation, but it is actually hard to shake them from it, because first of all, they know that it's worth that and they're not going to take anything less. So what are you going to do, right? But you turn up with oh, we got this blockchain. What's it worth? And you're like, wow. Let me tell you a story.
I'm very aware of the time. The reason I need to leave is because there's a call that I cannot miss.
That's cool. Apologize. Okay, well, why don't we wrap it up?
Well, I've got 5 minutes, and what I wanted to give you is my response at the time, which I thought was inefficient, and to get your thoughts on that using these last 5 minutes.
Right,
so
cool.
The I used because people think in analogies. And my analogy was Google ad spend. Well, Google ad search shows intent. Therefore, ad spend using data on intent. That's your problem. Figure it out, right? So if you've got a company, you know Google's a great source of showing intent. You want to buy keywords and draw it into your thing. Okay, that is your problem. Now there is a similarity here, which I wanted to test whether I was off on one, because I was thinking off the hoof on this one. Jim Cratchit requests and dust and ideas all show intent. So if you had 1,000 requests that we deduped into, basically there's demand of this type, then it's worth. Now you can project forward what you think it's going to be worth, but you do know there's 1,000 people who want it, right? And then you can do your own calculations. I'm going to sell it, or I'm going to offer it for this. And I'm going to put an algo here. I'm going to create an algo, which I'm going to put onto this idea. If anyone wants to buy it through me, this is that. But it's that idea that you're getting a database of business intent, what business needs, or what, in this case, not necessarily business, but what software is needed. Where Google search is the intent on what people want to know. We're showing intent on what people need. Now, in the last 3 minutes, critique that. Did I go well off? Because I was riffing at that point.
It sounds like you wander into the territory of soft demand. I think we want to really promote that we can offer hard demand. Those AdWords are all hints, whereas escrowed money or forwards purchases, those are more than hints, man. That is fact.
Oh yes. By the way, sorry, I think I put it down on the previous notes. They're very happy with escrow because that beats the old traditional way of doing it.
It's cheaper. It's honestly, it's cheaper to just.
Yeah. That there was nobody questioned about that. So it's okay. I want this, and I will spend that. I don't have to go around and find software developer companies who do it, and they'll argue this and that and so on. And I only ever spend that if I get what I want, and what I want is QA'd. Totally happy with that. That was no question.
Sort of how you expect things to work. It's actually how many industries work, but somehow software and law have escaped.
Well, yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, it was taken as read that this is superior, and having taken that as read, what they're saying is, I want to get rich on knowing about this first. So how do I get rich knowing about this first? Right. So as a single company, I can solve a problem. I don't give a shit about that.
Do you think the answers that I gave would have been sufficient to these people, or not really?
I'm not going to answer that because this evening I've got another one. So I'm going uptown this evening, and I'll try it. I'll just try it. See what it seems reasonable to me.
This is the way, man. Keep on trying, and then keep on coming back where you got stuck, and we'll just keep at it because I'm confident we can solve any of the problems. Some of them may require some rethinking on how we present, and some of them, hopefully, the real valuable ones are questions that we'd never heard before. So
yeah, but to summarize, just with 30 seconds left, to summarize, like 90% of it was like, yeah, that's obvious. That's obviously better. And then it's straight on. How do I become a multimillionaire because I know this first? And you just told me.
That's a great signal.
To
go from like when we couldn't even explain this thing to people and they're like, what? To like, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. I don't want it on the ground floor, but how do I know that I'm going to get on the ground floor? Should I go off to a funder and borrow 100 million and get like 1,000 guys writing requests right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're trying to raise money for, right? And once we can make these projection dashboard, you can sort of say, well, that's why you should invest and give us that cash, because we're going to go off and do these things, and here's our projections, and we'll know the value of our company. In the blockchain space, who would have imagined that? A company that is resolute about what it's worth. It's like, no, we know. Don't bullshit me.
Yeah, no. Once again, I never mentioned blockchain once, crypto once. There was just never questioned. Never questioned. What I said was, we've got a system where everything is stored, where you know exactly what's happened, and nobody can disagree with it. And it's like, yeah, okay, right. We don't really care. Right, let's talk about, how we make money.
Cool.
So, blockchain is not a word that we need to be using.
Yeah, it is not.
Right, I really do need to go now. Sorry for the rush.
No worries, I'll see you later.
I'll try and do it tomorrow morning, but it's a late evening thing.
Please complete your review on I-21. We need to get that passed.
Yes, good point. Well made. Right, I will do that before I go off. I'm going off roughly mid-afternoon.
Okay. All right, I'll look forward to reading it. I'll see you later.
Nice one. All right. See you, man.